What is going on, everybody? We're back once again with another edition of Wrestling Republic's Sold Separately, your number one spot for toys, collectibles, wrestling merchandise, all of the above, none of the below. I've got my esteemed co host from out in Philadelphia, the head of opinions, Anthony Ricciardi. How are you on this fine Thursday, Anthony?
I'm doing all right. It's been a rough and a long week. I don't know how it's not done yet. But it sold has been one of those things that we keep wanting to get to, and here we are. And it's a jam-packed episode with a lot of material to cover.
Absolutely. We got a bunch of good stuff to get into. We've got zombie sailor stuff. We've got, I mean, all kinds of good figures. AEW on tap. If you're an AEW fan, I'm looking down the list here myself. We've got Powertown. Let's get fired up. Let's get started though with the Zombie Sailor one that I know you and I were both excited about when we
Hmm.
first saw it. And that's the
Yes,
Sandman.
yes.
Sandman's in the building. This is a great figure. I mean, who doesn't love the Sandman? You got the box with him smoking the cigarette with the Singapore cane. You've got the Zubaz pants, the American flag Zubaz pants. It's
Hmm.
just classic, Anthony.
Yep. Yeah, this is a figure that was released on the 4th of July, up for pre-order. They're only making 1776 of them. By the time of this recording, it is sold out. I do have one on order. It is an iconic look from one of ECW's greatest legends. Um, you know, Sandman wasn't exactly great in the ring, but probably has one of the most iconic entrances of all time. When you look at it, he was mainly an entrance, which is fine. You can make a lot of money in this business being an entrance. But yeah, this is one of those iconic looks. It's kind of funny because I believe Mattel has released a similar a Sandman with the patriotic pants. But this Sandman comes with the beer can, comes with the Singapore cane. I don't believe it comes with a cigarette. Yeah, it's one of the most iconic looks of the Sandman, and the fact that you're able to do it technically without the ECW rights to put, technically an ECW logo or something on the shirt, they kind of made it work.
They absolutely did make it work. I mean, it's just fun. It's Sandman at this stage of his career of his legend. To
Hmm.
get any kind of a figure, it's going to be old school. It's gritty. It fits the character in and of itself,
Yep.
and that's one part of it that I love. Let's get to another one. This is
Yep.
this is this is funky. So
Yes.
we don't get a lot of dog figures.
Correct. I love the CM Punk figure. Again, this is another Zombie Sailor figure. This was another one that was a pre-order exclusive, which I do have on order. Which the insane part is how many Punk figures I have on pre-order. It's just the guy's very toyetic. The funny part was when they announced this, Punk said, "Order the Larry figure, and Punk is the pre-order bonus." Technically, Larry is the pre-order bonus. I love the fact that Larry gets his own package, which is cool. And there's an irony in the fact that you could recreate Brawl Out with literally everyone except Ace Steel, who doesn't have a figure, but Larry does. So it's going to be a fun figure for people to have in their collection, especially if you're a Punk fan. I don't know how many Larry figures are going to come out. This may be the only one that ever happens.
Yeah, I don't know that Larry has much traction beyond that moment in and of itself. And now with Punk being in WWE, to your point, I,
I
I
mean,
mean,
Mattel would technically release merchandise. I mean, they do. WWE has released Larry on T-shirts and stuff. So, is it that far fetched that we would get a Larry and possibly Cody's Pharaoh as a figure at some point? I wouldn't say it's an overall stretch that it can never happen, but for the time being, this is the one and only Larry figure and it's at least the first official one, regardless.
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm having trackball issues here, by the way, with my computer. I've literally done 2 just complete whiff camera cuts so far, but
Yes.
I'm gonna go to the next slide. Just It's so
Yes.
my fault, Anthony. I
No.
apologize.
Yes.
We also have the Legion of Doom and the Steiners, 2 of my favorite tag teams
Yes.
of all time. This is as fun as it gets. I if I was going to try to get my hands on one of these, it's it's this one for me. It's not perfect,
Mm-hmm.
like, by any means, but you got the spiked shoulder pads.
Yep.
You got the Steiner brothers in the singlets. It's classic, it's vintage, and it's tag team wrestling.
I mean, these are figures made by a new company, Golden Age of Wrestling. They're on Instagram. They're made to look like the old school nostalgia figures, like you mentioned, Clark. They're cartoonish. You know, the bright colors, the shoulder pads, like you said. The only deterrent that I had on buying these, and I don't like burying things, but each tag team set was $65 a pop, or like I think it was 60 a piece if you bought them both. I thought that was a little pricey considering the size of the figures. You know, but they are
Yeah.
awesome if you're a diehard Road Warriors fan or diehard Steiners fan. These are unique. You're not going to probably see these by anybody else. So if you really want that iconic look,
Yeah.
you know, this
I mean,
is
the handlebar on Rick Steiner is perfect. In this golden age of wrestling, correct?
yes.
Is the name of the company
Yeah,
that made these?
Nerd Closet, I believe, is the company that was selling them, but Golden Age is
Yes,
the ones designing them.
absolutely. I mean, they are good looking figures, like you said, expensive and small,
Hmm.
and not playability factor low, but at the
Yes.
same time, for a display piece, just an
Yeah,
absolutely beautiful, beautiful
absolutely.
set here.
Hmm.
Let's move on though
Yep.
to a funny one here. Let's talk about a ringside collectibles exclusive, Jeff Jarrett.
Yep.
We get a guitar and it's red. To
Yes.
me, this is basically a TNA Jeff Jarrett.
It's kind of funny because Jeff is one of those ones that, you know, when he was under WWE contract for the brief time when he returned, I believe they were supposed to give him an elite or an ultimate or whatever it was, and it just never happened.
Right.
So Jeff has not had a wrestling figure since TNA. So like early TNA Toy Biz figures was the last Jeff Jarrett figure that was made. So for him to get the deluxe treatment, the fancy package, the ringside exclusive set, it's a very cool piece. I have heard though, like the guitar, it's very difficult to put it back together. So
So you only have one shot to break it.
you only got one shot to break it.
Make sure you book it properly if
Yeah,
it's
I
playability
believe
factor.
I believe Myers and Cardona were talking about it, like how difficult it is to keep the guitar together. So if you want it just for display purposes, you might want to just leave them in the box.
Yeah.
Because you know the guitar sounds like it falls apart easily. This one I do not have, so I can't go from firsthand knowledge, but that's what I've heard. But it's a good likeness. I think it's a great likeness. It's an
Very good likeness.
iconic Jeff. At least from the past, from TNA on, I would think that's the Jeff look roughly.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about another figure though that I was really
Yep.
excited about. We got Willow Nightingale
Mm-hmm.
in figure form for the first time.
Yep.
So well deserved, and I think this is a really, really, really good
Mm-hmm.
look so far. Obviously, it's just a prototype here.
Yep.
The figure itself is just going to be beautiful. I think. Don't you agree?
Yeah, it's very promising. From the prototype, obviously, we don't have the color scheme. We don't know exactly what the figure is going to look like. Just from the 3D image, you know, she lights up a room when she comes in. She's the life of the party when she comes out. So the figure needs to match that. So, just from the 3D image, it looks like it's going in the right direction.
Also, I
But
love the hands. The
yes,
detail there. I think they're on the right track. To your
they're on
point.
the right track, and I'm sure this one will be visited in a future sold when we actually have a more high quality image of it.
Absolutely. And speaking of debut figures, how about
Hmm.
Skye Blue with her first figure?
Yep.
Comes with an awesome coat.
Hmm.
It's a really good look. It's face scan wise, I'm not 1,000% sure on it,
Hmm.
but it is to me, it is a quality representation of Sky Blue, and I think it's a really cool figure.
It's very tough with in general when you see the 3D images of these things, because
Yeah,
sometimes the figures don't look exactly like, sometimes they look better, sometimes they look worse. Just from this, I like we said with Willow, I think they're on the right track with this. The black around the eyes is a very nice touch. And I think it's going to be one of those figures that may really stand out uh, if they're able to deliver this in great quality with an actual plastic figure.
I 100% agree. I think this is going to be one of those ones that, when you gotta love the tiara, crown, whatever you'd like to call
Yes.
it,
Hmm.
edition, anything with the extra accessories, I think in the figure game these days is key,
Hmm.
and to have that along with the coat, it
Yep.
works. Julia Hart's first figure. Okay, I
Yep.
really love this one because the
Mhm.
face scan looks dead spot on. You have the removable mask. You've got multiple hands
Yep.
already, and you have the hat. This to me is a show stealer as far as this line is concerned.
Oh yeah, this is one of the top figures that I've seen of the women's figures that we've seen over during San Diego Comic Con and stuff like that. Obviously, just like Sky Blue and just like Willow, it's a 3D scan. So we don't know what the actual plastic figure is going to look like. But like we said, they're on the right track with these. Which is always a good sign when you're making a figure, that the figure kind of needs to look right. It looks right. So as long as they're able to deliver it, it should be a very solid Julia Hart figure. And with our first figure being this, it's a decent start.
It's a really good start. Yeah, it's just, and it's cool to see. Speaking of accessories, just the amount that went
Yes.
into this one. The removable mask. You don't get that often, right? Like,
No, I don't think so. It'll be interesting to see what they. I would assume they make it out of rubber. Would be my guess.
I would guess.
I'm not sure. The only thing is, like, I'm not sure with the strap, and for the mask, because
I'm
with
hoping
the
if it's like rubbery, like you can just slip it on and
uh,
slip it off.
my only thought is, especially with hair like that, it's
Yeah,
gonna go out a little. I don't know how well that on and off for kids, if that mask is gonna hold up the strap.
that's a good point.
That would be my only thought with that.
It's a
As an
very good point.
adult collectors, they'll probably just pose it, and that'll be the end of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay, let's move on though to, speaking of accessories.
Yes.
Bryan Danielson goes eye patch storyline. We all witnessed it. I dug it.
Hmm.
You have two different head scans basically here and two different eye patches. You've
Yes.
got the one that's the bandana and
Hmm.
the full eye patch.
Yeah.
I do really dig this. I wasn't a gigantic fan of the storyline, but if you're a
Mhm.
Bryan Danielson fan, this is kind of a must-have.
It's interesting with Danielson because he's had a lot of figures over the years, obviously. So to make one that's different enough for people to buy, uh, an eye patch is certainly different. It's the first and only one that I'm aware of that's ever been made of his. Um, to me, I really like the one with the bandana. Like if I was
Yeah,
displaying it, I
of
think
the
the
two
bandana
scans.
one's yeah.
I would agree.
Of the two, the bandana one I think looks really cool. I do love the chains on the knee pads. I think that's really cool. And on the kick pads, it's with Bryan likely retiring in 2024. Any figure that you see of him is going to be one that you're like, should I pick this one up? Like, my feeling, and this is just my gut instinct, I could see them releasing some ringside exclusive career retrospective one or something, because they're doing that with Sting. It's like three different Stings. That's them might be on a future sold. I'm not sure if that's on the slide deck or not. On a future one, but eventually I'm sure we'll cover it. But yeah, you could do like a kind of a career one, from him from Ring of Honor and him in AEW, and you can kind of have some fun with that. But this is a very unique Bryan, and I think it'll be a really cool piece once it's made.
Absolutely. I would agree. And yeah, I think it's definitely worth it, especially if you're a big Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan fan in
Mhm,
general. Like this is a collection must when it comes to that. Let's get into the next one, bruv, because this is an
mhm.
interesting one. Will Ospreay's first AEW figure, and I look at the head scan and I'm like, is that not Kyle Fletcher?
I gotta be honest, that may be. And again,
Yeah,
like we
let's get
said,
him off the screen for a second. You talk about it.
like I said earlier, they're 3D scans, so it's a possibility they could fix it between now and then. I think that may be one of the worst 3D images for a head scan we've seen of any figure that anybody's announced. I don't know what it is. It does not look right. Ospreay has only technically had prior to AEW, he had one figure ever made, and that was Super Seven. Made it when he was in New Japan. It was the Super J Cup Ospreay, very young Ospreay. This is the first time the Kingpin Ospreay kind of is getting made. Um, you know, as a whole, the tights are pretty cool. Um, Really, the only thing holding this back is the face scan. I don't know if it's going to come with a coat because they
Yeah,
have not said.
sorry. I was trying to keep it off screen, but like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I'm hoping it comes with a coat. I know they did release one during All In that was supposed to have the All In coat, but I don't know if this one's supposed to have a
We're
coat
a
or it's just
100% that's not Kyle Fletcher, right?
you could buy two of them and say one's Kyle Fletcher and one's Will Ospreay.
Dude, I'm just saying, I mean,
Let's put it this way. It's probably better than the Samoa Joe we covered during the Sting one. We all know how much you hated that one.
I don't know,
That's
man.
that's
This
the
is
bar.
pretty
Do you think this is worse?
because and then why is the second head scan yelling so much? Osprey doesn't usually yell like that. Why is he hollering?
Maybe he saw the Samoa Joe head from that other set.
I don't know, man. I'm lost upon
Because
this
because
one.
because you were doing that face when you were complaining about that one.
I think this is
Which
Kyle Fletcher.
which if anyone wants to know what I'm talking about, go back watch part 2 of Sold Separately Sting, and Clark goes on
Yeah.
one of the most historic rants of all time.
Okay, let's talk about another figure though. We've got Mercedes Mone. I
Yeah.
actually dig this one. It's an
Mhm.
accurate representation. It's awesome. It's got the
Mhm.
cool hair that she debuted with.
Yep.
She used it in New Japan. She's
Mhm.
used it in AEW. It
Yep.
looks cool. The
Mhm.
figure looks super accurate and sublime. Anthony, I mean, like this is spot on.
Yeah, I don't know which exclusive this will be. I don't know. It looks like maybe perhaps Shop AEW based on the images on it, even though I got the image from Ringside
Mhm.
when they were covering it during convention. But it may be a Shop AEW exclusive when it does eventually go up. And like you said, it's from her AEW debut. I don't know whether or not the jacket is cloth goods or rubber.
Right.
Because Jazwares kind of sometimes they do rubber, sometimes they do cloth. I'm not sure with that because of the level of detail. They may go rubber with it. The other thing I can't really tell is because there's two there. I don't know if that's two separate coats, one long one shorter one.
That'd be kind of cool.
Like the fact that they're showing two, I makes me think it might be two different coats, but then again, I don't know. I mean, we'll find out when they
Yeah.
actually release the
Or is
actual
that
figure.
what the back of the coat looks like? That could be it.
Perhaps it looks like a front to me though. The top one
No,
looks like a front, and the back one looks like a
could
front
be a
too.
2 coat special.
It could be a two-coat special. I mean, obviously, it comes with two different heads, so
The
maybe
shades.
one of the heads obviously has the shades. Having the CEO in the back is a nice touch. I'm very curious to see what this looks like in actual plastic form to see if it
Yes.
lives up to that.
I think it will. It's a really cool 3D scan. There's
Yep.
almost no doubt about that. Okay, let's go back in time though.
Yes.
Let's talk about the surfer himself.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, thank you, Anthony, for the
Yeah.
camera, for the
So
adept camera cut
yeah.
there.
So this is an interesting one. The one on the left was originally announced at San Diego Comic Con. They said this is the Surfer Sting that AEW/Jazwares was going to release. A couple weeks after it, they went, never mind, we're going white and blue instead. I don't know what the reason behind it was. But obviously they're both included because people would probably be asking, they changed this, or what about the other one? As far as I know, yellow and red is not getting made at this time. Instead, they're going white and
Chase
blue.
figure someday.
Possibly. I'd be very curious why
They're
they switched.
both great figures.
I don't know
To
if
me, it almost doesn't matter. It's 6-1, half dozen the other.
yeah.
Other than obviously you got the scorpion on the side of the white and blue one, but I mean,
I do find
what?
it interesting. I do find it interesting when you look at this. The yellow and red does not have the scorpion on one side. It has Sting written on the other side.
Which he did
The-
wear at one stage.
The white one has the scorpion, but does not have Sting on the same leg, as you notice.
And also, ironically, if you look at it, slightly different face paint on the white and
Yes.
blue one.
Yeah, it's not.
Completely different face paint
It
on
is.
the 2 head scans on the other one.
Yep. That's the thing. Like they didn't only just change the color; they changed the entire attire, from the
I
paint
mean,
to the
I'm
pants.
thinking, and not to recklessly speculate, but put your tinfoil hats on here, my friends. You got Hogan's red and yellow,
Mm-hmm.
and you basically got Warrior paint on that second head scan
Mm-hmm.
on the red and
Now,
yellow one on the left.
it wouldn't shock me if they didn't go yellow and red because they didn't want the first Surfer Sting for people to go, that's Hogan's colors.
Right.
It wouldn't shock me. I think the white and blue is a very cool.
Oh, it looks
look.
way cool.
I think white and blue, they made the right
The
move. I think
second head scan looks way cooler too than the original.
yes.
With the serious face, it looks really cool.
I think the difference is the paint, because I do think it is I do think it is the same head. I just think they changed the color palette.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's, if you're looking for a Surfer Sting, this may be the logical move to go.
It's as good as you can ask for.
Yes.
Let's move on to our next stinger of the afternoon, though. Let's talk about the Blade Runner Sting.
Yes. The funny part about this is if you saw Sting Part 2 that we did on Sold Separately, I said this was the one Sting they never released. And then sure enough, after we recorded it at Comic-Con, they were like, hey, here's Blade Runner Sting. And as you can see, it's a completely different Sting. Like it's, the shades, as far as I know, there's never been a Sting coming with shades. It comes with a gold chain, as you can see. The only sad part about this is that we're probably never going to get the Warrior to go with this.
Right.
Unless Mattel releases it.
Right.
I don't think we're going to get it.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah. But of all the things that's been made, this is the only one missing.
Yes.
Realistically, there's never been a representation of this Sting. So
basically the band, if they made figures of the band Sting, that's all that's missing now.
Honestly, you could easily turn around and say it's from that era. But yeah, this is a very cool Sting. I don't know if I'm going to pick this one up. I do have a lot of Stings. But if I was looking for a Blade Runner for sure, this would be the one.
It's a good one. No, and it is so funny how we brought it up in the last one, and it's just like, oh wait, no, they head faked us. They got us. Okay, this is a figure though that we were looking forward to talking about, and they did it. They gave us what we wanted.
Yep.
They gave the people what they wanted.
Yep.
Toni Storm, timeless Toni Storm, in black and white. Yes.
Yes.
With the red lipstick and the AEW Women's World Title. Multiple hands, both head scans perfect. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
This is a ringside exclusive. Full disclosure, I did pre-order this one, San Diego Comic-Con. I swear I don't pre-order every single show that we do, but in this one I did. And frequently when I talk about when we cover Powertown, it's like, oh, I want gorgeous George's figure, and I talk about gray. I want it in gray. This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's an iconic look. The red lipstick was a nice touch. It reminds me of not to get all morbid, but reminds me of Schindler's List. The entire movie's in black and white except for the coat.
The red.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of with that. And obviously, on a future episode, there is another Toni Storm figure that is like this, that we'll eventually talk about. But I love that the belt, they kind of went with a gray wash for the belt too. They didn't make it gold. The only color is the lips. It comes with the shoe. And although it's not shown here, the packaging is very cool. If you check it out on Ringside,
It's awesome.
but this may be one of the best characters
Yeah.
in AEW's history as far as anybody, men or woman, and probably one of the most over characters of women's wrestling, perhaps of all time. I'm not saying she is the most over, but one of the characters that it's been the most over.
Absolutely. Let's move on though.
Yep.
Let's talk about Powertown,
Yep.
and they're back with a bang as always. Jack Brisco.
Mm-hmm.
What a figure this is, Anthony. Talk to me about this one.
Yeah, it's funny because most of the figures along this line, and it's pretty much Powertown's mission, as we talked about before, they try to make people that have never had figures before. Jack is one of them. Former NWA World Champion. Kind of ironic that Jerry, his brother, who technically was less successful than him as an in-ring career, but he's had a figure. Granted, it was during the Stooge.
He's wearing a suit.
It was Stooge Jerry. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong, I believe he has a Brisco Brothers Body Shop shirt on.
There you go.
I believe I kind of wish I would have got him and Patterson, because Patterson has the Clark. You would remember this when it was him and Jerry, and they were maybe wrestling Austin. I don't remember specifically, but Pat Patterson had the homemade white T-shirt with just the black lettering that said "First IC Champion" on it.
Yes,
it was like with a Sharpie, like if I remember correctly. But yeah, it was along those lines. But Jack is somebody that, if you know your wrestling history, he was one of the best to ever do it, an NWA legend. And for him to finally get a figure after all these years is a really cool thing. I'm very curious what the final product is going to look like on this.
Oh, no question. It's going to be a good one. And Jack Brisco, an absolute legend, no doubt about it. Speaking of legends.
Yep.
Dory Funk Jr.
Yep.
Terry Funk, we've seen plenty of figures, but we do not see many Dory Funks. Talk to me about this one, Ant.
Yeah, just like Jack, Dory's never really had a figure, at least in the States. I don't know if he had any in Japan, but Dory is one of those ones that, iconic. I don't want to repeat myself what I said with Jack, but a lot of it is identical. Dory is second generation.
Yeah.
Obviously, his father, Dory Sr., his brother, Terry, one of the all-time GOATs. So to have a Dory Funk Jr. figure to go along with a Terry Funk figure, as we've seen Terry multiple figures, you have him in the old cowboy gear, you've had him in the ECW gear. So to me, if you have the Terry in the cowboy gear, it would go perfect with the Dory figure. And like I said, it's going to be one of those ones that, if you're an NWA historian, you love NWA wrestling, the Jack and the Dory are musts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm with you there. This one's crazy because the Moonbelly Kamala is legendary, but now we have a less valuable, but maybe future equally as valuable Moonbelly Kamala. And boy, is this a good looking figure. Super cool. Love Kamala. Powertown just never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah. Kamala's the most interesting one because Kamala's never held any titles in wrestling. But he is very toyetic. The interesting part to me is the fact that they went with Kamala, because Kamala's had a lot of figures over the years. It has been a while since he's had one, but he has been made before. So it was interesting to me that they went this route to
I think
do
the
Kamala
moon
now.
belly, based on the hype around that,
Yeah,
you're going to provide more value because even though it's not the exact same thing, it's a
yeah,
more detailed version, and he's got the moon
and
on
it's
the
a cheap.
belly. That to me is the touch in this one that, capitalized reality TV or not,
Yeah.
it made that figure even more famous than it already was, even more valuable than it already was.
Hmm.
And now you release something with more detail,
Hmm.
just as beautiful and accurate representation. I'm all over it.
I,
I
I I am
big ups to Powertown.
I am always a fan of when a figure comes out and people really want it and it's too expensive because they don't make it anymore. I am always a fan of somebody making the figure so that if you just really want it just to want it, um,
Yeah.
this is obviously a much cheaper option than paying the insane pricing that exists for the incredibly rare um Hasbro or the Hasbro version of Kamala that was out many, many, many
Yes.
years ago.
It's so true. Like, to your point, a friend of the show, Carter Crisp, are
Hmm.
both of our friends, right?
Yep.
Loves Stan Hansen. The
Yes.
original Powertown series, the Hansen figure was what he cared about the most.
Yes.
And so if you're a Kamala fan, or if you were a fan of the Moonbelly figure and you're like, I can't spend $10,000 on it, this is what you've got.
I
This
need to
is,
eat
and
this
it's
month.
great.
Uh,
Speaking of awesome action figures right now, though,
yes. Yes.
JYD Junkyard Dog, so stoked he is
Yes.
in his line from Powertown, Anthony. I mean, and it's the likeness is perfect.
Yeah.
Powertown literally does not miss.
Yeah. This is such an awesome figure. And like Kamala, he has had a couple figures over the years from Mattel, but it's been a while. But the level of detail, the dog chain, anybody that grew up in the era, not me or Clark, that was predates us, but Mid South when he was
Yes.
really JYD and became a star prior to going to WWF and being a more cartoonish Junkyard Dog. This represents the hard hitting face of Mid South wrestling.
Yes.
JYD. Anybody that's seen the Dark Side of the Ring knows that he tragically had passed. Um, but he is somebody that his mark was as still recognized today in wrestling. Obviously, he comes with a Mid South Championship belt. Obviously, it's not in this picture, but yeah, JYD, you gotta love it. It's definitely a figure that if you're going to buy one out of this line, JYD makes a logical choice.
Absolutely. I'm with you there. I love Wahoo McDaniel. I'm so
Hmm.
excited about this figure. This is just outstanding. I never thought we'd see a Wahoo figure. This is a guy my dad told me about, grew up watching. Like,
Uh huh.
it's awesome. I hope we get a Greg the Hammer Valentine down the road.
Hmm.
I broke Wahoo's leg
Yeah,
t-shirted figure down the road, but this to me is a must buy.
I gotta ask you, Clark, did you pre-order it?
I did.
Did you? That's
I
awesome.
did.
That's awesome.
I did.
But yeah, Wahoo was one of those ones. Again, I feel like this series in series two is very much in tribute to the unsung because Wahoo's another
Yes.
one that really has not had a lot of figures. I had looked it up. I don't even think he had any, or he might have had like one many years ago. So Wahoo really is not somebody that gets made very often. And again, this falls in the NWA uh legend category,
Yeah. Mid-South, all of that.
yeah, so Jim Crockett Promotions, like this is like that era, and there's a portion of the audience doesn't really watch wrestling anymore,
Yeah.
but grew up watching Wahoo, still love Wahoo, and would want this figure. So for it to get made, it's very cool for him to get recognized in figure form finally.
Absolutely. And before we finally finish up, we've got
Yep.
one more that I'm super stoked about, because we've been talking about how Powertown just does not miss.
Yep.
And once again, we get Medusa
Yep.
in the American flag gear in the Powertown lineup. So well deserved. Such a good looking figure here, too. Medusa, an absolute legend of the business. I'm fired up about this one. I think it's really cool. And the first true women's figure in the Powertown lineup,
Correct.
if I'm not mistaken. Yes.
Correct.
And deservedly so.
Medusa is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe she said this. She was the first woman to get offered a contract in Japan. Medusa is a true trailblazer in this business. She's only ever had one other figure ever made of her, and that was his Alondra Blaze by Mattel. So there's never been a Medusa figure. WCW never made it. Medusa probably suffered the same thing that a lot of, not even just wrestling, but in general, and I've said this before on air, and it's true. The original April O'Neil in the movies, Judith Hogue, talked about this when NECA finally made her April O'Neil figure. Somebody asked her, why did it take so long? She was told, and this was back then, the 90s, she was told, we don't make women's figures, they don't sell. And there's always been this mentality, and you could see that even with wrestling figures. When we were growing up, Clark, there really weren't a lot of women's figures they made.
There's only so many,
Yeah, it was very few. You could probably count on one hand the number that were actually made during that time. Obviously, completely different now. But to have Medusa be the first one to be made, obviously, I believe she's coming with a Japanese women's title, if I'm not mistaken. Although it's in the small print there, I believe it is, because obviously they can't get the rights to the WWF Women's Championship, and the only other, she held the WCW Cruiserweight title.
Hopefully we get a trash can.
The Alondra Blaze did come with the trash can, the Mattel one from years ago, but Medusa, it's just awesome, and she also appeals to the monster truck people, because she did that after WCW closed.
Yes,
for a long time. So there's a lot of interest with this figure, probably, I would hope, and I can't wait to see the final product.
Same, absolutely, and I think Powertown has just done an outstanding job. When it comes to their figures. That does bring us to the end of this episode of Sold Separately. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already smashed like and subscribe, please do. On behalf of me, Clark Taylor, Anthony Ricciardi, everybody here at WR, thank you so much. We will see you soon. We've got more episodes coming. Tune in every Friday. Same time, same place. We're going to be dropping more episodes. Tomorrow's only the start. Have a good one, and we'll talk to you soon.